Hello, am I audible now? Can somebody please write in the chat box whether I am audible? Ma'am, I am audible now this time. Can I begin? Hello? 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 Yeah, ma'am, am I audible now this time? Can I begin? Hel- Hello? Yes, yes, I have restarted, no, madam. Yes, ma'am, I have restarted it this time. Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, ma'am. I'm just waiting for your instruction. Yeah, I'm waiting for your instruction to begin. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Hello, a very good evening to one and all. Am I audible there? Can just somebody type so that I can begin with the session? Already we are late by half an hour. Hello there. Okay, let's begin. I'm getting a good number of responses. Everybody is saying yes, I'm audible. So let's begin. First of all, a very good evening to one and all present in the session. And I'm really very sorry for the technical glitches that we have been observing since last 40 minutes or so. Well, I'm Dr. SUNIL LALCHANDANI. I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to Shri Dhyanraj Maulik Shikshan Seva Mandal's Achievers College of Commerce and Management for giving me this opportunity to present my views on essentials of startups in front of you. I thank the chairman, Dr. Mahesh Bivandikar sir, for being supportive in this particular initiative. I am also very much thankful and I convey my gratitude to the principal of the institution, Ms. Sophia D'Souza. I also thank the convener, Ms. Sana Khan, for organizing this webinar. Well, to begin with, let me introduce myself. I am Dr. Sunil Lalchandani from Srimati CHM College, Ulhasnagar. I am the head of Management Studies department there, and I am also the coordinator of Incubation Center at CHM College. So today we are going to see how startups really need certain factors to improve upon, or in some easy way, what I can say is that startups, they really play a very important role in the economy. But then when we talk about these startups, they require certain fundamental factors to grow. They require certain fundamental or you can say essentials, which really are very much required for the success of those startups. So let's begin. Let's begin with the concept of startups. Now, when we talk about startups, startups are very much well connected to the entrepreneurial activities. Now, it is sure that time and again, countries have always focused upon building entrepreneurial culture in their nations, which results in the creation of jobs. And it leads to increase in the trading activities across the boundaries, and also it leads to the increase in the revenues of the nations. It also leads to the innovation and developments of the countries. Now, many countries of the world, they have clearly demonstrated a superlative entrepreneurial culture, and thus the entrepreneurship has been considered as what you can call it as driver for the economic growth in their nation. Now, when we talk about the startup may be a business unit or a company that is in the early stage of its operations. It is perhaps founded by one or more entrepreneurs in pursuit of developing a unique product or maybe a unique service, which is generally backed by the technology. Now, when we talk about startups, in the case of startups, the budding entrepreneurs aims at developing the robust and the scalable technology, and also the robust and the scalable business models. These budding entrepreneurs are referred as founders or also called as co-founders. Usually, these business models introduced by founders have higher uncertainty, and more often they also have the lesser chances of success. Yes, I'm saying that these startups, they have good concepts, but many a times you will find out they have higher uncertainty, and also they have often lesser chances of success. But it is also true at the same time that there are some good concepts in the market that will be making the survival growth guaranteed of these startups. These startups have high growth potential, enabling the world to experience the best of the goods and services. So this is the introduction to what I'm talking about is the concept of startups. Now, I want to hear from your side. What you can do is you can write in the chat box regarding how startups are beneficial. Can somebody write? Can somebody please put on in the chat how are startups beneficial to any country? How startups are advantageous for any nation? I just want to interact with you as well. Can you please just put down your comments in the chat box? How are startups essential? How are startups important for any economy to grow ahead? Can please somebody write the answer in the chat box? One answer we have got, that is increase in employment. That is true. Startups, they give boost to the employment. With startups, the number of, or you can say the number of unemployments goes on decreasing. That's true. It helps in raising the employment of the country. What apart from employment? Yes, that is also true. It brings the young budding talents up. It also leads to the economic development. That's very much true. There is economic prosperity. And there is another advantage which has been mentioned by Shubham Jain, that it also promotes the use of technology. So these are, yes, you all are correct. I hope you know the basics about these startups. So let me give you a brief gist about why these startups are very important. The very first reason, as you all have already mentioned, that these startups boost the employment of the country. When we talk about startups, it is very much true that startups are going to increase the employment. They are going to reduce the rate of unemployment in the economy. So that's the very first advantage. The second advantage is wealth creation. Now, what do we mean by wealth creation? Wealth creation, it means we are talking about that when we talk about these founders of these startups, we call them as entrepreneurs or founders. They are attracting investors by investing in their own resources. The people of the nation would get benefits when the startups grow. See, whenever any startup grows, definitely the people of the nation are going to get the benefit. And moreover, whatever money is there, the money is being shared with the society in one or the other form, and that is how the wealth is created within the nation. So startups also enables to create the wealth of the nation. Then when we talk about the another important advantage of these startups is that these startups helps in increasing the output. When we talk about output, we are talking about production. We are talking about the production of goods and services. So whether these startups belongs to manufacturing sector or they belong to the service industry, they are tend to increase the output. When one single startup is formed in the country, definitely the production of goods increases, or maybe the production of services increases. So there are many. So what we try to say here is that with the rising number of startups, there has been a considerable growth in the production of goods and services, not only in one single country, but everywhere where startups are, where the concept or where the ideas of startups is flaunting. Then another important advantage of startups is that these startups provide the better standard of living. When people are able to get employment, people are able to generate more income, definitely their standard of living rises. Moreover, these startups, especially which are very much enabled with the technology, they come out with best of the products and services. For instance, today we have Swiggy and Zomato, we have Ola and Uber. So with all these changing startups, with all these innovative startups, our lifestyles have changed across, and our lifestyles have changed over a period of time. So definitely it's something what we are expecting today is a better standard of living from these startups. Then somebody else pointed out correctly that when we talk about startups, they also brings economic prosperity. They also bring the economic growth. So another important advantage of startups is that they leads to the economic growth in form of contributing more and more GDP to the nation. Then there was someone, another student who has typed that, who has mentioned in the chat box that the startups also leads to the advancement of technology. That is true. So again, if I talk about these apps which are running out in famous in today's market conditions, whether it's Swiggy or it's Zomato or it's Ola or it's Uber, or even it's Make My Trip kind of an app, or it is a Clear Go Trip. So everywhere you will find out there is technology disruption taking place. That is new, and new technology is coming up, and today we are reaping the benefits of the same. So sitting at my home today, I am able to order the food from best of the restaurants in the nearby area. That's the smartest thing that I could do it. That I could do it in the recent times. So that is all with the help of technology these startups have tried to bring in. Apart from it, there is another important advantage which all students must understand, that when we talk about these concept of startups, these startups are more agile. What do we mean by this term called as agile? When we talk about the concept called as agile, agile means being more responsive. Now see, who are the founders of these startups? Generally, when we talk about these founders of the startups, they are highly enthusiastic people, and they belong to the younger generation. So when you talk about the younger generation people, they are more into taking decisions very quickly rather than when we talk about the people in the big industries. So they are the one who can take the decisions easily. They are one who can respond to the changing situations. So that's why these startups are called as agile. Decision making is quick. There is no wastage of time in making decision because an enthusiastic entrepreneur, he wants to achieve something. So he is adopting the agile mode of doing the things. So that's another important advantage of your startup. Then the most important, which I hope every student will like, that when we talk about startups, you are your own boss. Yes, I'm repeating again, you are your own boss. One of the very important advantage of startup is that you are your own boss. It means you can make your own rules, you can decide about your own timings, you can choose your own priorities. However, you are independent, but at the same time, it is also understood that, however, this independence is not a free lunch. It is accompanied by number of responsibilities. So though you are your own boss, but the responsibilities are going to follow. Well, these are the advantages of startups. But in the beginning, if you remember, and you also might be observing every now and then, that these startups, they don't, all these startups don't have a very good fortune. Most of the startups, you will find out they fail. Yes, I'm saying again, most of the startups fail. Why they fail is, this is what we are going to see in the next session. I mean to say, in the continuing session only. In the next part, we're going to see why these startups fail. It is being observed that 90% of these startups fail at the first instance. So can somebody from you tell me what could be the reason behind the failure of these startups? Why these startups fail? What could be the reasons behind these not so successful startups? Yes, can somebody please tell me? Can somebody write in the chat box? I can see in the chat box. Why startups fail? What could be the reason behind the failure of these startups? Can somebody please tell? Lack of knowledge and experience. Kajal has mentioned not a proper planning. Lack of information. Yes, it's not properly planned. Unavailability of resources. That can be another reason. Yes, you're right. I want to listen. I want to hear some more answers towards this question. It's a very serious matter for us to discuss why these startups fail. Wrong market assessment. Then there is lack of experience, inefficient management. Yeah, correct. Any more reasons why startups fail? No proper strategies. Yeah, correct. No customer centric. That's also correct. Okay. Um, Let me begin. Growing competition in the same breath line, poor management. Yes, all these are the connected answers. Let me tell you, and let us see how your answers also match with these things. The very first reason, the most common reason behind the failure of startups is lack of demand. Startups fail if an existing market problem is not solved. See, you are establishing a business. The business is, you are setting up a business. The reason behind is you are going to come out with a product. You are going to come out with a service that is going to be a solution to a particular problem. So startups fail if an existing market problem is not solved. Many companies believe their innovation is quite appealing and their products or services are in great demand. Companies think if the product does not create demand due to low, you can say, market demand, the businesses will be facing the recession. Before we put our heart and soul into an idea, we have to find out if there is a demand in the market for this particular product. If there is some demand, then we have to find out how much demand is there, and then shall we be able to move further with this particular demand. Now, I know for instance, I am going to sell the mobile phones in my locality. I have to find out how many people would be able to afford this kind of a mobile phone in my locality. If I don't have a good crowd who will be really demanding my product, then is it worth I will be investing and starting a business? Obviously, no. So I have to find out what is the level of demand for a product in the market. If there is no demand or if there is low demand, then definitely it's of no use. So startups fail because they start with the production, They start supplying the products in the market, but there is no demand, or there is very low demand in the market. They are not able to survive. The second important reason, now nobody gets this reason, but I must point it out, and that's a very important reason: doing it all alone. Yes, again I'm repeating, doing it all alone. The idea of solo founders is very exciting. That is, you individually are starting your business. That's good, but it's not always with the challenges, barriers, and the potential startup failures. It's not the efforts of a person that makes a company successful, but what happens is the magic is done through the teamwork. When two or more people come together, they do brainstorming, they put their ideas, they uh, what happens is in a teamwork is the weaknesses of one person are taken over by the strengths of other person. One person is able to point out the mistake of other, and they can take the corrective action. So if you are doing it all alone, many a times you may not be successful. So another important reason which has been pointed out by many agencies regarding the failure of startups is that doing it all alone. The third and a very, very, very significant cause is poor marketing strategy. Some of you have clearly mentioned in the chat box also that marketing strategy may not be good. That's why startups fail. Yes. So what I could say here is, no matter how great your product is, no matter how your great service is, but what if people doesn't know about it? What if there is no awareness about it? So poorly managed or advertised products will have no value in the market, because there will be no awareness of such kind of products in the market at all. So you have to define a clear-cut marketing strategy. And moreover, today, it's a world of social media. Your presence on social media is very important, and that is how you will be able to create the awareness about your goods and services in the market. Another a very strong reason behind the failure of startups, again, nobody could point it out this thing, is running out of cash. Out of 10, 8 startups fail because they run out of cash. They are not able to manage their finances. They are not able to put the control on their expenses. They are not able to save the money. So that's one of the important reasons. That is, you are able to run out of your cash. You're not able to pay your bills. You're not able to pay to your creditors. You're not able to pay to your employees. So that's how running out of cash will also lead to the startup failure. Then, in a survey, it was also mentioned that some startups fail because of the legal problems, because of the legal aspects. The founder may be highly a technical person. He may have a good knowledge of the product. He may have a good knowledge of the market. But at the same point of time, he also need to have a good knowledge of the legal procedures. He also need to have a good knowledge of the, he should also have a good legal or what you can call it as, you should have a clear understanding about the legal aspects. So many times what happens is these startups are strangled. They are stuck in some kind of legal problem. From you can say coming out is a bit difficult at that point of time. So legal aspect is another reason for which startups can fail. Then another important reason for which startups are not able to get good success is lack of innovation or a business model failure. Yes, this is also one of the very important reason. In a survey, it was mentioned, in one of the report of McKinsey, it was mentioned that 90% of the startups fail because they lack innovation and there is business model failure. Now, what happens is, if you take, let's take the example of India. Now, India is a highly populated country with, we have a big number of people who can run their startups. But what is happening here is, all the people in India or all the youngsters in India, they are not able to come out with a satisfying model of a startup. What many people are doing here is they are just making a replica of what they have seen in the Western countries. They just try to bring what they have seen other countries are following. But many times, whatever other countries are doing, whatever business model other countries are following, that may be good in their country, but that may not suit to the Indian context. So what I try to say is that startups fail because their business model is not good. There is no much innovation within it. It's just a copy-paste model which you have seen in the past. So startups fail because of lack of innovation also. Yet called as funding issues. Funding. Now, when you are talking about the business, you require money. You require investors. This is fine. You require money. You require investors who will be investing within your business. So if you don't have a good investing partners, if you don't have good investors for your business, definitely there may be a lot of problem with your business. You can start your own startup with your own money. When a promoter or when a founder starts the business with his own money, that kind of a startup is called as bootstrap. That is called as bootstrap. But what happens is slowly and gradually when you grow up, you will require additional funding. You will require additional support. But many a times, the investors may not be there with you. Many a times, startups are not able to pitch. They are not able to attract the investor, and that can lead to the failure of the investor. That can lead to the failure of the startups. So that's another way. That's another very important reason for which startups may fail. So now here we actually begin with the concept of, now here we again I'm repeating, let's actually begin with the concept of essential for startups. What we have seen till now is that why startups fail. Before that we have seen what are the advantages of startups, how a startup can be an advantageous for any economy or for any country to grow. So let's begin with the essential for startups. Now see, there can be n number of essentials which are very much required to keep the business running. But in today's session, we are going to cover the 5 main important things. We are going to cover 5 most important things that are required to run your business in a long run. If you remember these 5 things, definitely your startup will never fail, or there will be very lesser chances of failure of your startups. So let's begin. Slowly and gradually, we will cover up all these 5 startups, all these what it is called as all these 5 essentials. And in between, I will also give you the case examples of some of the good startups, like how they have introduced that particular essential in their business and they have lead to a good business model. Let's begin. We are talking about the very first essential, the very first requirement for a successful startup, that is innovation. Innovation provides a competitive advantage to the startups. It facilitates them to be one step ahead than their competitors. This makes startups easy to sustain and easy to grow. Again, I'll repeat. This makes the startups easy to sustain as well as easy to grow and lead in the market. It enables the startup to deal with the various challenges and solve the problems, and thus act as a source of improving efficiency for startups. Big companies in the markets, they have the capacity to keep the startups at brink. See, again, I'll repeat what it is being said is that big companies, they can always they can always play some kind of games through which startups can be avoided. The growth of startups can be avoided, or their entry can be restricted. However, it all depends upon your innovative model through which you are able to attract the customer. So startups believe in the innovations, and if they are able to deliver the promises to the customers, they are definitely going to see a very good thing. So let's see. Let's move further and let's try to see that when you talk about the concept of startups, when you talk about the concept of innovation, how this innovation is going to be useful for you. But before that, let us try to understand the sources of innovation. Is this clear? Let us try to understand what are the various sources of your of innovation. How can innovation come up? How can innovation creep in? Innovation is not something that is built in a night. That is not built in one night. You have to give up. You have to come out with so many ideas. You have to come out with so many things. So there are many sources of innovation. That is what we are trying to cover here. The very first source of innovation is your knowledge. Is this clear? Again, I'll repeat. The very first source of innovation is knowledge. To a greater extent, innovation depends upon knowledge. Many experts believe that innovation is the knowledge-based outcome. Is this clear? Again, I'm repeating, it is a knowledge-based outcome. The existing as well as new knowledge act as a source of innovation. So you can innovate when you have knowledge. Is this clear? So knowledge is going to come out with an innovative thing. Another important reason is, another important source is experimentation. Now, experimentation means you are learning. You are learning by trial and error. So, definitely, when you are learning by trial and error, it is definitely going to be another source of innovation for you. Unless we experiment, it's hard to seek new stuff. If you want to seek the new stuff, you definitely have to experiment the things. So innovations, it is true, innovations are not possible without experimentation. Experimentation has to be there. Experimentation is one of the very important source of innovation. So one source of innovation is knowledge. The second source of innovation is experimenting. The third source is creativity. Again, I'll repeat. The third source is creativity. Now, what is this creativity? Now, creativity, when you talk about, is associated with imagination. It is associated with conceptualizing unusual and novel ideas. These ideas are further implemented and formed as innovative products or services. So here, creative thinking is very essential. If you will talk to any founder anytime, you will see he has a creative thinking. Is this clear? Creative thinking brings some kind of innovative ideas within his mind through which he is able to come out with good products or services in the market. Startups need to have these creative people on board. This can really trigger the startups to perform better and better, and this makes creativity a very fundamental requirement for the success of startups. So three things we have seen as a source of innovation. One was knowledge, second was experimenting, third one is creativity, fourth one is necessity, need. We have learned in case of uh, Maslow's need hierarchy theory. As one set of needs get satisfied, the individual moves towards the second set of needs. So what is happening here is a person is motivated to do something because there is a need to something, isn't it? There's a need for something. So when you talk about the need is also the basis of innovation. Now see, initially there were landline phones, isn't it? Slowly, there came an era when people started using mobile phones. These mobile phones were also big and they were creating barriers for the people to take the mobile phones with themselves. But slowly and gradually, today we have seen a very compact size of mobile phones, very slim mobile phones, which people are able to carry anytime, anywhere, very easily. So what has been the reason behind it is, the reason behind has been the need. There was the need in the community that they should be able to interact with somebody at any point of time. They should be able to get connected with anyone at any point of time. There was a need for this thing. So to solve this problem, the mobile phones were introduced. So what I'm trying to say again is that innovations come because there is some need for that thing. People used to walk while they used to travel from one place to another. Slowly and gradually, the wheel was innovated, then horse cart was innovated, and today we have best of the cars in front of us. So need is again a basic resource, or you can say is a basic thing for the innovation. This is fine. So these are the four things which are very much associated with your innovation. We call them as sources of innovation. Again, I'll repeat. What are these four sources of innovation? The very first one is knowledge. Second one is experimenting. Third one is creativity. And fourth one is need, or what you can call it as is necessity. Let's move further. Now, if we move further, we can see that there are different types of innovations. What kind of innovation you are going to bring? It is clear. Again, I'll repeat. There are types of innovation. Which innovation you are looking forward that you have to find out. Let me explain you. George Lopez. He is a principal engineer and also an alumnus of MIT. Now, George Lopez in his article has clearly mentioned that there are four types of innovations. Is this clear? How many types of innovations? There are four types of innovations. The very first one is called as incremental innovation. This is fine. The very first one is called as incremental innovation. Second one is called as disruptive innovation. Third one is called as architectural innovation. And the fourth one is called as radical innovation. Again, I'll repeat these names so that you should become familiar while we're discussing. One is incremental innovation. Second one is disruptive innovation. Third one is architectural innovation. And the fourth one is radical innovation. Let us try to explain, let us try to understand, let us try to get an idea what these four types of innovations are and how these all four types of innovations are very important for us. The very first innovation, as I said, is incremental innovation. Now, this type of innovation, it refers to utilization of organizations' existing technology and adding value for the customers. So what you're doing is, you're not doing anything very great. You are utilizing the organization's existing technology and you're going to add value for the customers. It can be in form of changing the product design or adding new features to the product and generating more demand for the product. Is this clear? What you're going to do is, you're going to play with the basic design of the product little and you're going to come out with a new type of a product by altering its design. Now, businesses are more commonly found to have obtained incremental innovation at one or the other point of time. Let us have an example of our own very own app, WhatsApp, on which we are there every time. When WhatsApp was introduced, it had limited features. For example, later on, much later, a feature was added to WhatsApp through which sender of the message can come to know whether the receiver has read the message. I'm talking about that white single tick, double tick, and then blue double tick. Now, this feature was not available earlier. This feature has been introduced much later. This upgradation of feature, is this clear? This upgradation, there is just an upgradation of feature. This upgradation of feature is called as incremental innovation. So when you talk about incremental innovation, it doesn't mean that you are bringing altogether a new product or a service in the market. It means you are adding to the technology. You are adding to the product design. You are adding some more features within your product and you are making it much more scalable in the market. Second innovation is something called as disruptive innovation. First one is incremental that we have seen, adding new features. Second one is called as disruptive innovation. This type of innovation makes the use of new technology for the firm's existing market. Such innovation take place due to major change or what we can call it as this revolution in the technology. So see, what we are bringing here is, we are altogether coming out with a new technology which nobody would have heard about. Now, this particular type of innovation can further lead to the new markets also. It means you can find out more customers for this particular product. For example, with the advent of internet, the functions of businesses have changed over a period of time. Earlier, we used to only have one channel of business, that was offline. If you want to buy something, you have to go out in the market and you have to buy. But today you have n number of things, isn't it? Even like let's take another example. If we're talking about the finance services industry, we're talking about banking. If we take the banking sector as an example, we know that the way banks have functioning today is enormously different. So internet banking, mobile banking are the outcomes today in form of facilities that has enhanced the customer experience. So again, I'm talking about the banking business is same, but you can see how it has been added with the technology, how technology is now become the backbone of the entire banking sector. So that is something called as disruptive innovation. So when you talk about disruptive innovation, it means you are bringing a major change in the technology part especially, and that is called as disruptive innovation. The very first one was incremental innovation, which is connected with adding more features. Second one is disruptive innovation, which means you are making the use of new technology within your existing business. As I gave you the example of banking sector. The third one is architectural innovation. Again, I'll repeat. The third one is architectural innovation. You are changing the existing architecture of the product. It is clear. Maybe the resources are similar, but the way they function, the way they perform the function are changed. Is this clear? So that is something called as architectural innovation. For example, the businesses introduce the newer patterns of connection between the existing components in the system. Let me give you the example. If I talk about the mixer and grinder is a very old, you can say, product that we have seen in the market. But in comparison to mixer and grinder, there has been a newer model. We call it as hand blender. Now this blender has almost all the similar features like mixer and grinder, but you can see its architectural design is much different, isn't it? The architectural design, the components of this hand blender are much different in comparison to what you call it as this mixer and grinder. So that is something called as architectural innovation. Blender is a very convenient tool. It's a very easy way to make your what you can call it as this food items. It's much easier to use than the very heavy model called as mixer and grinder. So this type of innovation where you are changing the structure, where you are changing the patterns, where you are changing the entire architecture, that is something called as architectural innovation. Apart from architectural innovation, there is fourth type of innovation, what we call it as this radical innovation. Now, radical innovation is generally the innovation that has always been talked about. It's the radical innovation that brings newer business model and it surpasses the existing one. It is that type of innovation which brings completely a different product or a service which people would not have thought about. It brings completely the new system at place. It is something like preparing for the future. Let's take an example of a payment mechanism called as Paytm. Now, Paytm has brought a revolutionary effect in the financial industry. When countries are preparing to go cashless, innovation solutions like Paytm are of greater use for them. So when you talk about radical change, it means bringing totally a new thing in the market which nobody has thought about. So if you talk about Facebook, if you talk about Instagram, if you talk about startups, if you talk about Snapchat, if you talk about any other app that you have been using it in the recent times, like even TikTok, all these are the radical innovations. Is this clear? All these things are radical innovations. Before the WhatsApp was launched, nobody thought that even this could be a successful model of communication. Is this clear? When Instagram was launched, nobody thought that this would be another beautiful way to express your pictures and to do the marketing in the business. So these all are the radical innovations. Is this clear? So we have seen four types of innovations. One is something, the very first one, that is something called as incremental innovation. Then second one is called as disruptive innovation. The third one is called as architectural innovation. And the fourth one is called as radical innovation. Is this fine? I hope it's clear with you. Okay, let's move further now. We are moving further to another very important segment, that is a case here. I'm going to give you a case example, how with the help of innovative model, a startup has been able to influence in the market. I am talking about a startup which is named as OCEO, OCEO startup. Now, what is this OCEO startup? Let me talk about it. OCEO is a part of two important industries called as water and Internet of Things. Now, OCEO is a Bangalore-based startup which was founded in the year 2017 by the founders who are named as Mahendra, Hashmukh and Vikram. The fourth person is also involved. His name is Rajiv. So the four co-founders together started with the concept named as OCEO. Again, I'll repeat the founder's name: Mahendra, Hashmukh, Vikram and Rajiv. Now, the startup is bootstrapped. I told you the meaning of this term called as bootstrap. Bootstrap means the startups which are started with the founder's own money. Here, investors haven't yet contributed anything. So OCEO started as a bootstrapped startup. It is a startup that has provided a technology. Let's see what this startup is all about. OCEO is an IoT-enabled smart water purifier startup. Smart water purifier startup. You have heard about AquaGuard. You have heard about any other RO pure water filters, isn't it? So It's the same thing, but here there's a different model of business. It uses an innovative model of technology that works on providing accessible pay as you use. Is this clear? How it is being used is how it works on is it is being worked on the model of pay as you use. So whatever quantity of water you are filtering, you have to pay on that basis. You are not supposed to pay the cost of the entire water filter. See, these water filters are always very expensive, isn't it? When you install a water purifier at your home, the a person from the company will come, he will install, and after every 3 months or 6 months or so, he will come for the servicing of the same. But in case of OCO, it's not the same thing. In case of OCEO, what they do is there is a counting going on that how many liters of water is getting purified. So you are supposed to pay to the company on the basis of liters of water that you are purifying and using it. So your data goes to the company server, and based on that, company will be billing you. It's really a very cheap affair. It's not as costly as what you're paying for AquaGuard or maybe for any other water purifier. So see, this is a very innovative model. Today, in just 2.5 years, they have been able to sell 1,500 pieces only in Bangalore. Now they are expanding it to the other states as well. So what I mean to say here is, see, the concept is same, water purifier, but see the model of the business. The model of the business is pay as you use. So whatever quantity of water you are going to purify, you are going to pay on that basis. So that's a very innovative model. That's how these four founders have got a very great success in the market as well. You can search oceo.org on Google. You will be able to get the case history of this company. Again, I'm repeating OCEO, water purifiers. Let's move further. Let's move further now. We are now going to talk about another important essential, another very important essential for your startup. That is something called as understanding customers. It's very important to understand your customers. I always keep on telling my students every time, customer is your opportunity. Customer is your opportunity, while satisfied customer is your bonus. Is this clear? Your customer is definitely your opportunity, but if he's satisfied, it's a bonus for you. So startups have to configure their business model giving priority to the customer centricity. Without understanding, without having the right knowledge of the customer needs, without having a proper understanding what the customer require, how can you sell a product to him? How can you claim that your product or that your business model is really very good? This is fine. So understanding customer is very important. I can give you a case example of a startup that failed miserably. It initially got a very good success. The startup is named as Cardback. CARD, Cardback. It's one word, Cardback. Now, this Cardback was a fintech startup, a financial technology startup. It started in the year 2012. Now, this basically was a payment recommendation platform. Is this clear? I'll repeat. It was basically a payment recommendation platform. It was intended to save the money of card users. See, people are using the cards. Sometimes I'm using an Axis Bank card. Sometimes I'm using an ICICI Bank card. I can have n number of cards with me. So what is happening is you are very much aware that some companies may get associated with a particular bank, and they come out with a particular scheme. For example, if I'm buying from DMart, I will be getting 10% discount if I'm using Axis Bank card. Is this clear? So what is happening is many people may not be knowing this particular information. So what happens is they end up losing their money. They end up paying more sometimes. So what happens over here is this particular company, this particular startup named as Startback, it was a payment recommendation platform. Uh, Founder was Nidhi Gurnani and Nikhil Vasan. Again, I'm repeating the names of these founders. Nidhi Gurnani and Nikhil Vasan. So what was their concept basically was that a user may have several cards. He has to decide which card to be used for making the payment at a particular point of purchase. One card may give him a good discount, other may give him a good cashback. There may be another card which may offer him reward points on future purchases. So he has to select the right card and a beneficial offer which could give him extra bonus. However, it's not easy to recognize. Cardback was a platform that could help the user in understanding which card to use when. Is it okay? Again, I'm repeating. This particular startup named as Cardback, it was the platform that could help the customers, that could help the users in understanding which card to use at what time of purchase. Can you guess why this particular startup failed? I want you to write your comments in the chat box. Why this startup failed? Can somebody guess what could be the reason behind the failure of this particular startup? Yes, can somebody guess? Can somebody write in the chat box? I'm waiting for your answers. Can somebody guess why this platform named as Cardback failed miserably? What could be the reason? If they started very well, they got good funding also in the beginning. Can somebody guess what was the reason of failure? Okay, without wasting, let me tell you. The idea behind this model was very innovative. Initially, in the beginning, investors also were very much attracted. There were three angel investors who went on investing for this particular startup: Rajan Anandan, Sunil Kalra, and Alok Mittal. They invested very heavily in this particular startup in the year 2014. Though the startup it got a grand success initially, it actually failed to recognize the knowledge about customers. Indian market was not matured in 2014 or 2013 enough for the startup like Cardback. Here in India, even today, many people do not have multiple cards. I may be using just one single card. I may be using two cards, but I will not have 10 to 12 cards from which I have to make a choice. See, this particular platform called as Cardback, it was a recommendation platform. It was recommending the customers that if you have more number of cards, which card to use. But here in India, card culture was not so good in the year 2014 and 15. So this particular platform failed miserably at that point of time. So what we need to say is that before you begin in the market, you have to find out that whether there is really a need for this product, whether you will be able to get good customer base, whether it's an innovative model and there are good number of customers. That's very important. So you should be knowing your customers before you invest in your business. Is it fine, everyone? So I gave you the example that why or how understanding your customer is very important. Apart from it, understanding customer is very important because when you are talking about understanding your customers, you're talking about customer centricity. It means you're talking about developing your business which is customer centric, or you can say it's an approach where you can say customer is the king of the market. Apart from it, it also bridges the gap. That's the second reason why understanding customers is important. It bridges the gap. Now, many a times businesses fail. This is clear. The businesses fail. There is a gap between the customer's expectations and what customer experience. Again, I'm repeating. There is a gap between what is customer expecting and what customer is getting, what he is experiencing. So there is a mismatch. Customer was expecting I will be getting A thing from the startup, but the startup is not able to deliver A. Rather, startup is delivering the B thing. So there is a gap between understanding the customer requirements. That's why many businesses fail. So when you talk about understanding customers, this gap is filled. There is always a good scope of improvement when you're talking about having a customer centric business. Apart from it, when you are talking about understanding your customers, you are actually trying to create a good number of loyal customers associated with your business for a longer period of time. So it enhances loyalty. While you talk about understanding customer requirement, it enhances your loyalty. It also leads to the growth prospects of the business. Finally, it leads to the market development, or what you can call it as this goodwill of the company. Okay, I have another important case to discuss with you. This case is of a startup from the logistics industry. Now, see how beautifully this startup it tried to capture the requirements of the customers based on which they established their business model. Now, let me explain you this model. This is something called as Rivigo Logistics. The startup is called as Rivigo Logistics. Let me give you the example. Let me tell you how this Rivigo Logistics has brought a change in the entire logistics industry. Now, one of the problems that transport industry is facing even today is of truckers. Truck drivers I'm talking about. We call them as truckers. Logistics has been the backbone of the industrial growth. However, truck drivers they have different set of problems which affect their productivity, ultimately impacting deliveries. The major problem is long distance traveling that keeps them constantly away from their families. They hardly visit their families, hardly maybe 3 to 4 times in a year. Apart from it, another challenge is continuous hours of driving. This really has been impediment for the transporters. So transport businessmen, people in the transport industry, they were facing a lot of problem with the truckers. This problem was very well recognized by Deepak Garg and Ghazal Kalra, the founders of this particular startup. Again, I'm repeating the names: Deepak Garg and Ghazal Kalra. They both are the former McKinsey consultants. They were working with McKinsey, who joined their hands in the year 2014 to make the truck drivers profession inhumane, deriving benefits for the transporters. So see, they have recognized what is the problem of truck drivers. They know that these truck drivers, they have to spend a lot of time without their families. They have to stay out. So that was a major problem these transport industries were facing. So this is how the idea of Rivigo Logistics was conceived, a startup of its kind across the globe. It uses the driver relay model with the help of a robust technology. Again, I'm talking about the model. The model is called as driver relay model. Now, what is this particular model called as driver relay model? This model aimed at creating humane environment for the truck drivers. Now, they are not called as truck drivers, they are called as pilots. Is this clear? In Rivigo Logistics, the truck drivers are not called as truckers, or they are not called as drivers. Rather, they are first of all called as pilots, through which, through this particular model, they can be back home on the same day after 6 to 8 hours of driving each day. So how much driving they have to make each day is just 6 to 8 hours. The startup is based on understanding and recognizing the problem of clients. It is completely an innovative model which benefits the clients in many ways. So I was talking about this relay model. Is this clear? What I was talking about is driver's relay model. Now, what is this driver's relay model? Take a simple example. Uh, there is a truck that has to transport goods from maybe from Mumbai to Kolhapur. So what will happen here is, in this particular model, a pilot will be driving the truck in Rivigo Logistics. A pilot will be driving the truck. He will drive till Pune, and from Pune there will be another pilot who will be take that particular consignment and make this particular consignment reach to its destination in Kolhapur. So what is happening here is, the very first pilot, the very first truck driver, he he dropped the truck at Pune station only, and from Pune there was another connectivity through another truck driver. So this particular truck driver, who is now standing at Pune, he will bring another truck that is coming from some different route from Pune to Bombay back. So what I'm trying to say here is that a truck driver has traveled from Bombay to Pune and from Pune to Bombay back. So that's something called as a relay model. One driver didn't drive to entire destination. There is a relay model. So this particular model made the Rivigo logistics a very unique and a very successful model. And the model is purely based on the approach of understanding your customer requirements. The transportation industry was facing a big problem of the truck drivers. They were not getting truck drivers because people were running away from this profession. Drivers, they were not wanting to do this particular job because most of the time they have to remain outside their houses. They have to be there without their families. So in that context, Rivigo Logistics, they brought a revolutionary change in the logistics industry by adopting this unique model. So what we try to say is understanding customers is very important. Now the question is, how can you understand your customers? The very first method of understanding customer requirements is survey that every student knows, isn't it? You all have been doing your projects where you are asking the respondents to fill the survey form. In the similar form, some kind of a survey can be conducted. I must tell you here, the Rivigo logistics people, Deepak and Ghazal, they both did a very superlative job of surveying the truck drivers. They spoke with truck drivers, they spoke with the transport industry people, and that's how they were able to understand their requirements based on which their model is depending upon. So survey is the very first and the most important way to connect to your customers. Second, another way is to keep an eye on the real-time behavior of customers. You have to keep on finding what customers want, what customers require, what they purchase, what price they are expecting, what quality they are talking about. So you have to keep a real time. You have to keep an eye on the real time behavior of the customers. Now, how is this possible? Today, it is possible with the help of technology like CRM. Today, you can install a CRM system within your business, and you can always find out this particular functionality in your business. Apart from it, another way to get connected with your customer, and it's a very important way to get connected with your customer, that is customer engagement. Is it clear? That is something called as customer engagement. Now, what is this customer engagement? Now, customer engagement, it's a way through which you can connect with your customers. It's an emotional connect through which customer make repetitive purchases and make more referrals. Customer engagement is considered as the part of effective customer experience. Let me give you the example of a startup named as Shopify. They believe in providing their customers with best of the customer experience and thus make customer engagement a focus activity. So that's what we're talking about, customer engagement. Keep your customer engaged with yourself. Talk to him. Try to keep in touch with him. That's really very important. So that is something called as customer engagement, through which you can be in touch with your customers and you can make the repetitive purchases from them. So this is all about understanding the customer. So we have done two essentials by now. The very first one was innovation. The second one is something called as understanding your customers. I hope both these things are clear. Yes? Okay. Let's move ahead to the third very important essential called as something called as marketing strategy. The right marketing strategy is very important. Many companies, they fail, many startups fail because they are not able to make the proper implementation of the marketing strategies. They have not been able to first place, they have not been able to formulate these strategies very well. So many times startups fail because of the marketing issues. So marketing is very, very, very essential element in case of startups. Now, why marketing is essential, I must not tell you. This is something very much common and everybody knows in today's era. Marketing, it helps in making your brand identity. It helps you in developing the good customer relationships. It also helps you in being different from your competitors, isn't it? When you market your products, you try to show how your products are different than your competitors. Apart from it, marketing is something also called as growth hacking. Yes, I will explore this particular part, growth hacking. Now, growth hacking is a very recent marketing buzzword. This particular term was actually devised by C.N. Ellis. He is a California-based serial entrepreneur and an angel investor in the year 2010. The name of the person is named as C.N. Ellis. Now, startups generally have petite budgets but are looking for immense growth opportunities. See, hands are tight, budget is smaller, but they are talking about immense growth opportunities. So, growth hacking can be a term used in such context. It enables these budding startups to acquire a greater number of customers with lesser and lesser budgets. So, any entrepreneur or any founder who, with the help of smaller budgets, is able to make a growth, who is able to make a growth, is something called as growth hacking. It means you have been able to hack the growth with your smaller budgets. So that is the magic of marketing. Marketing is very important. If you are able to go for growth hacking, it's again marketing behind it. Now, how can you go for effective marketing? How to go about it? The very first way to go about effective marketing is through branding. Branding is something called as a matchless way to create your identity. It is a technique to create a long-lasting impression in the minds of the customers. Branding gives a platform to startups to stand unique and distinct than their counterparts in the market. Take the example of Bisleri today. Today, when we go out in the market and we want to buy a packaged bottle drinking water, we never ask for a water bottle. We ask for Bisleri. See, that's the magic of branding. So branding is very essential. When we go to buy the hair oil, we don't call it as hair oil. Today we call it as parachute dinner. Similarly, when we go for photocopying, hardly anybody calls it as photocopying. Everybody calls it as a Xerox. I want 2 Xeroxes of this. I want 3 Xeroxes of the same. So this is nothing but you can see the way companies have branded their names, and that's how people have connected with these kind of products. So effective branding is very essential for marketing. Another important way to go ahead with a right marketing strategy is early stage marketing. Again, I'm repeating, early stage marketing. For startups, it is essential to generate the revenues as early as possible, because startups are the small businesses. They have the limited cash flow in their hands. If they run their marketing campaign after launching the product, you can imagine what will happen. I am launching the marketing campaign after the launching of a product. It's really a very late thing. The marketing and the awareness campaigns shall begin at the early stage, so that once the product is developed, there are customers to buy the same and business starts generating revenues at the early period of time. Apart from it, we can also use multiple angles for marketing, what we call it as this integrated marketing communication, isn't it? Today, we are not using just one channel of communication. Today, we are using multiple channels of communication. We are marketing with the help of television advertisement. We are marketing with the help of radio advertisements. We are also marketing with the help of Facebook or Instagram. So that's something called as multiple angles of marketing. That's really a very good marketing strategy. Then when you talk about marketing strategy, again over there, you have to innovate. You have to bring some new idea in your marketing communication. So that's something called as think outside the box. So for startups, it is very much necessary to think unconventional and out of box as a matter of demonstrating distinctiveness. Things outside the box is a way to connect as many consumers as possible in various ways. So you have to think outside the box. You have to come out with innovative models. You have to come out with innovative messages of your marketing campaigns, and that's how you are going to be successful. Very important for every startup founder to attend the trade shows and conferences. From time to time, there are trade shows, there are conferences, there are exhibitions organized. So startups must participate in these trade shows and conferences, because it's a way to speak to the other people in the industry also. It's a way to demonstrate your product there in the market. So you must go ahead with the same thing. Apart from it, your presence on social media is important, and the right marketing strategy also talks about how you can focus on marketing budgets. I told you the growth hacking. Today, startups are working on the concept of growth hacking. That is how, with a limited budget, they can grow their businesses. So, growth hacking, if you're talking about, so you have to be right in your marketing. I can give you the example again of Uber. Let's discuss the case of Uber. What is Uber? Can I know from someone? There's a question here. There's a question here that can a meme marketing help your business grow? Yes, definitely, because again, it's one of an innovative model where you are present through the social media. So that is going to outperform your businesses in the coming period of time. Yes, that's true. Okay. I was talking about the case study of Uber. Can somebody tell me what is Uber? They are into which business? Yes, Uber, they are into which business? Uber's marketing strategy in India was never once about large media spends or traditional mass marketing methods. It's totally an innovative model. What Uber has done. I wanted to show you a video, but I could not connect it right now. Definitely, I'll try to send you the video in your WhatsApp groups. Now, Uber had a very thoughtful marketing approach. They call this approach as launch, build up, amplification, sustenance, and growth model. See, 5 things they have made in their model of marketing called as launch, build up, amplification, sustenance, and growth model. Now, what they have done in this particular model, let us see. The very first phase is something called as launch phase. During the launch phase, they came out with the influencer marketing. Uber launched itself in Delhi, NCR, Bangalore, and Mumbai. Is this clear? They launched themselves in Delhi, NCR, then Mumbai, and Bangalore. They brought a campaign called as Rider Zero. The campaign is called as Rider Zero, where they roped in key influencer. I hope you know about the influencer marketing. That's a very innovative model today again. You bring the influencers who will be making a propaganda of your products. So they brought a campaign called as Rider Zero, where they called in key influencers from every city to try out Uber service for the first time secretly. So from Delhi, it was Zahir Khan, Ranvijay, Neha Dupia, and Rajiv Makhani, the NDTV host. He brought these celebrities and gave them what you call it as free ride, and that too was done secretly. Then when they came in Mumbai, they brought in Anil Kapoor, they brought in Arbaz Khan, they brought in Rahul Bose, and when they were in Bangalore, they tried to have free services for Raghu Dixit and Vasundhara Das. So what happened was, when these influencers were riding, they shared their experiences with the public. They shared their experiences on the Instagram or on their Facebook page with the public. That's how people got to know more about Uber and their services. So this was during their launch phase. So in launch phase, they came out with a campaign called as Rider Zero, wherein they gave the free services to the celebrities successfully, and that's how the referral marketing concept was used by them. Then in the second phase, that is something called as amplification. Remember the name of these phases. The very first one is called as launch. The second one is build up. Third one is amplification. We'll move to the build up phase. Now what happened was, during the build up phase, they spent more on referral marketing. Rather than spending on the TV as a medium of marketing, they went for referral marketing. They decided to spend the money on giving the consumers a first-hand experiences of the services to try their product. Nothing works with better when you talk about Indian consumers when you give them a discount. So what happened? When for the very first time, if you're driving, you will be getting 50% discount on your drive. So for instance, if I want to travel from here from Kalyan to Thane, my ride will take 500 rupees, but they will be giving me a 50% discount on first ride. So what happens is, Indian people, they are very much happy and they feel very happy and they feel attracted towards this concept of discount. So this is something also called as referral marketing. So what happened? I suggested this service to my friend. Then my friend suggested this particular thing to another friend, to to another relative. So that's how the name went on spreading of Uber in the Indian market. So this is something called as build-up stage. At build-up stage, they went for referral marketing. Then at the amplification phase, they came out with heavy discounts during the festivals. We also call them as festival marketing. So what was happening at the special festivals, they were giving good discounts. I'll share again a beautiful example here. On the Valentine's Day on 14th February, they come out with the Valentine's Day celebration. So what was happening over here is uh, even on the Mother's Day, they celebrated Mother's Day. So how it was happening? Uber offered to give moms a Mother's Day makeover or a lover's ride in Uber Chopper on Valentine's Day. So what was happening on Mother's Day? If you are bringing your mother in the car, that will be a free ride for you. Or on 14th February on Valentine's Day, if you are coming with your Valentine and riding in the car, that will be heavily discounted. So this is something called as festival marketing. So that was another way to increase sales in the Indian market. This is something called as amplification. Then the next phase was on sustenance phase. At sustenance phase, they went on making tie-ups. They went on making strategic partnerships. Now, how about how they went on making strategic partnerships? For example, they made a tie-up with Paytm. That is, if you are making your payment with the help of Paytm app, as I said, my ride from Kalyan to Thane took 500 rupees. I'm not paying 500 rupees cash, but I'm paying 500 rupees through Paytm. So if I'm paying through Paytm, I will be getting 10 rupees or 15 rupees, some kind of a discount over there. So what was happening? This is something called a sustenance phase when you make tie-up. They made tie-ups with many other startups, like even Zomato. They made tie-up with Book My Show. They made tie-up with Mini Cooper as well. So what was happening? They went on increasing more and more partnerships, and that is how they spreaded their businesses in the market. So this is something called a sustenance phase. And finally, in the growth phase, they try to be there in the every city. Today, if you will see, they are at the growth stage and they are in the every nook and corner. If you want to go in any interior part, if you are there in any interior part of India, you can get the Uber ride very easily. So that is a strategy, something at the growth stage. So what we call them is that Uber, they adopted the approach called as launch, build up, amplification, sustenance, and growth. This strategy made them a very successful startup in the Indian car industry. When in India, you know that people are crazy to have their own cars. In India, people are already crazy to have their own vehicles. But what happened? Uber, it changed the market scenario with its effort, with its highly paid efforts of marketing strategy. So that's all about marketing strategy. We are going to see the last essential, a very important essential called as finance. We have first seen innovation. Second, we saw about understanding customers. Third, we have seen marketing strategy. Now, fourth, we are talking about is finance. Now, finance is again a very important and essential requirement for your business. Now, when we talk about finance, it is something considered as the lifeblood of your business. What we say is that your business is totally depending upon finance. If you want to buy resources, if you want to go to the market, if you want to talk to your customers, if you want to innovate, you require finance. So finance is something that will be helping out in gaining the momentum for your business. Now, why finance is required? The reason is you need to make the operational expenses, isn't it? You need to meet your working capital requirements. For that, definitely, you have to have finance. Then apart from it, you also want to buy assets. You want to create these assets. You want to buy machines. You want to buy vehicles for delivering. So for all these things, you want finance. You want finance again for developing the new products, maybe for, you can say, innovations, to carry out innovations. You also require finance to manage unavoidable risk. Is that clear? You require finance for unavoidable risk as well. Many times there may be n number of things going on. There are a lot of risks. Now take a very simple example, COVID-19. It has been a very unavoidable risk for many startups. You might have read in the news, you might have read in the newspapers, or you might have seen in the TV news also that many startups are closing down because they are not able to manage with this risk. So finance, if you have a good backup of finance, you can manage these unavoidable risks as well. So finance is required very much to manage these risks. Now, the question here is how you can manage these risks. How not manage these risks, how you can manage this finance. The very first one is control your fixed expenses. In the beginning, when you are going to have a startup, at that point of time, try to limit down on your fixed expenses. If you are incurring heavy expenditure, if you are incurring heavy capital expenditure, obviously it may not be, your startup may not be able to sustain, because you will be running short of money at that point of time. Then another way to manage your finance is to track all your expenses. What it has been observed is that many startups, they have failed, they have shut down. The reason is they have not been able to control on your, they have not been able to put a control on their expenses. So it is very much necessary that you should track your expenses. You should list down what all your expenses are and how you can control them. Apart from it, another very important way to manage your finances, you are not just going to be keep in touch with your existing customers. You also have always to strive for acquiring new and new customers. Unless you acquire new customers, you will not be able to get a sustainable business model. So you have to focus on the customer acquisition also. That's very important, and that's a very basic essential for any business model. More appropriately, if you are building up your financial goals, that will also be helping you out in your startup to continue its business. So you have to talk about the financial goals. That is, how much I will be spending in this week, how much revenue I will be getting in this week, what are my monthly expenses in a month, how much income I'm going to get. You have to establish these goals. Unless you establish these goals, you are not going to get the success. Lastly, you have to think about your premature expansion. Is this clear? Premature expansion. We also call it as premature scaling up. What happens is, you have started a business maybe a 1 month back. You saw you are getting a good success. Immediately at the end, at the beginning of second month, what you're doing now is you are launching it in some other market. Maybe, for example, you have started a business in Kalyan. You got a good growth in Kalyan. Now what you're doing, you are expanding your business in Thane. You are expanding your business in Mumbai region. Then you are going more forward. So what we're trying to see is, don't hesitate, don't what we can call it as is, don't try to run in a very haphazard way. Clearly think upon how you are going to scale up your business. Clearly think about how you are going to expand. If you are going to make your expansion plans in a haphazard way, definitely it's not going to run in a long run. You have to think very wisely. You have to choose your expansion plan very carefully. So many businesses have ended up. Many businesses have completely shut down their operations because they went on expanding. They went on scaling up without having proper funding. So that's very, you can say, important point for everybody to note, that we need to avoid the premature expansion. So we talk about the fourth essential called as finance. The connecting one to the fourth essential is fifth one, that is funding. From where you are going to get the funds, that's very important. Is this clear? That's very important. I'll be next taking your 5 to 10 minutes only, and then we will wind up upon this part. Now we are talking about the fifth essential, the last essential, called as funding essentials. If you remember, I told you that when the founder starts the business with his own money, that is something called as bootstrapping. It is clear. It is called as bootstrapping. But you may not be able to sustain longer on this bootstrapping principle. At some or the other point of time, you will require the external funding. You will require some investors to invest in your business, and accordingly you can grow your business. So here comes the funding essentials. At some point of time, you should be able to get a good support from the investor. That's very important. That's very important. So let's begin. There are various phases of funding. The very first phase is something called as bootstrapping, as we have done already. The second one is called as angel funding. Now, what is this angel funding? In case of angel funding, there is an investor who is called as angel investor. he contributes the large amount of funds available for your business. He is able to understand that your business model is promising. Even he will be getting good amount of profits from this business model. That's why he is ready to invest in your business. He is generally a high net worth individual. What we call it as in wealth management is HNWI, high net worth individual. As this person is a high net worth individual, he has good funds available for the business. He has good funding with himself so that he can invest in your business. So angel funding is the second level of funding where the investment from 50 lakh rupees to 2 crores can be done. This is clear. From 50 lakhs to 2 crores. Then there comes the concept of seed funding. Now, seed funding is also called as early stage funding. The very first you saw was bootstrapping, that is, there is no funding, it's your own money. Second one is angel funding, where is some individual investor comes and supports your business. Then third one is seed funding, which is called as early stage funding, in which the startups can raise the funds by equity financing. The control and definitely when you talk about the seed funding, the control and ownership will get diluted. This is clear. So angel funding is also there. There are a number of companies, there are a number of you can say financial institutions that can support you in seed funding. Generally, when you talk about seed funding, the amount of funds that can be raised with the help of seed funding is up to 200 or what you can call it as this 2 lakhs dollars. This is clear. This is what is happening in the international markets. Up to 2 lakh rupees when you are raising, that is something called as seed funding. Apart from seed funding, then you have other rounds of funding with very high group of companies who can invest in your business. They may be called as Series A funding, Series B funding, Series C funding. So it is all going on, increasing the investment amounts into the business models. So when you talk about Series A funding, you will find out there can be investment of 2 million US dollars to 5 million US dollars. This is clear. When you talk about Series B funding, it will be more than 5 million funding by the external investors. So this is how the entire business funding model is depending upon. So as a startup, you have to pitch to your investors and you have to get the right investing at the right time. That's very essential part. I hope it's okay. So we have seen in today's session about the 5 essentials of the startups. These 5 essentials can make or break your business. If you take care of these 5 essentials, they'll make your business. But if you don't pay attention on any one of these essentials, they are definitely going to break your business. So we have seen the successful startups are different from the failure one. The reason is these 5 basic things. The very first one is innovation. Second one is something called as knowing your customers or understanding your customers. Then you have right marketing strategies. Then fourth one is your finance, managing your finance. And the last one is something called as funding essentials. So if you stick to these 5 essentials, if you take care of these 5 essentials will take care of your startup. So that is all for the day. If you have any queries, if you have any questions, you can always ask from me. I'm also typing my email ID in the chat box so that you can get connected with me. If you have any more doubts, if you have difficulties at any point of time, if you want to talk to me about your startup, if you want to if you want to know more about how to start with a business, you can always talk to me. I'm sharing my email ID. I'm also sharing my mobile number with you. So anytime you can get connected with me. I'm from CHM College in Ulhasnagar. Yes, please. If you have any more doubts, the session is open for the queries. I'm waiting for the queries. Okay, there's a question. Is it compulsory to raise angel funding or directly we can raise seed funding? See, when you talk about the funding part, It's something like the whatever I have explained you, angel funding or seed funding or level A or level B funding. These are the levels of funding. It all depends upon how much amount you want to get from the investors. If you want, for example, just 50 lakh rupees, there is no need of seed investing. You can go for the angel investors also. So it all depends upon how much money you are requiring for your startup. So if your money falls into that particular category, you have to go for that particular level of funding. For, as I gave you the example, if you want just 1 lakh rupee, so for 1 lakh rupee, you will not go for seed funding. You will go for angel funding only. That Okay, so Chitra Suresh has asked a question: what is growth hacking? Okay, this is what I mentioned in my explanation earlier also. Now, growth hacking is a new marketing buzzword. Now, growth hacking is the concept which is used by the innovative business models. Now, what is happening is when you talk about these startups, always these startups they have the cash crunch. It is clear. Startups are not a very high-fi people. They are not having high amount of money in their hands, but definitely they have limited amount of budgets in their hands. It is clear. They have limited amount of budgets in their hand, so they have to take care of all their expenses in that particular budget only. So what has happened over the years is it has been seen that some startups, some founders are so dramatically have been able to raise the growth of their startups even with the help of limited budgets. Again, I'll repeat, their budget is lesser, but the growth is very high. Budget in terms of marketing I'm talking about. मतलब उन्होंने मार्केटिंग में बहुत ज्यादा पैसा खर्च नहीं किया है, मार्केटिंग किया है बट कम पैसों से किया है. So they have limited budget for the marketing, but they have been able to raise the level of their startup considerably. That is something called as growth hacking. So growth hacking means you are growing high, but with a limited marketing budgets. Okay, there's a question from Bharti. Which business is good in this lockdown crisis? Is this clear? Again, I'm repeating the question. Which business is good in this lockdown crisis? See, again, I'll repeat here. You have to find out what your customers want. I do believe that today customers are very much attracted with the help of innovative technology. Any innovative business model you are bringing up that is backed up with a robust technology, that is going to get a grand success today. So whether it's let's take the example of Swiggy or Zomato, they are the food delivery apps, or you talk about the business models of live streaming. You can take the example of how Netflix is doing a wonderful thing these days. So these are some of the successful business models which are really going to survive in this lockdown period as well. You take the case of online education. If you are starting up with any online education portal, get connected with a college or a school, see how much you are going to earn today. So you have to find out what is missing in the society today. Based on that, you are able to give them a solution. Okay, there is a question that um, a good startup should meet break-even point in how many years? See, break-even point is something which always depends upon the industry in which you are. Now, take a simple example. If I'm talking about the logistics industry, which is a very capital intensive industry, I have given you the example of Revigo Logistics. So, in a Revigo Logistics, in case of such capital intensive industry, definitely the break even point will be more in comparison to those industries where capital is less input. Take an example of a car rental app like Ola or Uber. Now, Ola or Uber would not have taken that much number of years, which the Rivigo Logistics is taking up these days. So, what I'm trying to say is, it all depends upon the industry in which you are. Is this clear? It all depends upon the industry in which your startup is doing. Okay, any other question, please? Okay. Uh, I hope you have liked the session. And if there are any more questions, if there are any more queries, you can get connected with me. Already we are running late by 1 hour as our schedule. So what I'll be doing is I'll be ending up the session here itself right now. If you have any more questions, if you have any more doubts, you can always connect to me on my phone. You can always connect to me on my email. You can write me. You can write me on my mail. I'll be responding you as early as possible. I hope you have enjoyed today's session, and definitely uh, you will not be hesitating to share your startup stories with me if you have any at any point of time. So I'll be going offline now. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for passionately listening to this session. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.